In the name of the risen one, amen.
Amen.
The gospel reading ends with a cliffhanger. The first witnesses to the resurrection saw that Jesus' body was no longer in the tomb, and they heard the young man in white say that he was raised from the dead. And they also said, "He's gone ahead of you to Galilee, and tell the others that he will see them there." But the three women were terrified and amazed, which is understandable. And then Mark tells us they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. And that is the end of the good news according to Mark, the earliest of the four Gospels. Wait, what? How is this good news? You would think they would be bursting with this news. And even if they couldn't make sense of it, you'd expect they would have run off immediately to find the others and tell them about it. And in fact, that is how the other three Gospels tell this story. But Mark leaves us wondering, what happened next? What did they do with this earth-shaking news? We know they must have eventually found their voices, or we wouldn't be here right now. In fact, Mary Magdalene is known as the apostle to the apostles. She's the one who was the first witness to the resurrection and brought the news to all the rest. So why did Mark choose to end this gospel this way, with the three women too scared to say a word to anyone? I think that ending is intended for us. We've heard the whole story. We've heard the good news that Jesus has been raised from the dead. Now what are we going to do? How will we respond? The gospel is open-ended because each of us has to work out the ending for ourselves. The cliffhanger turns on how we decide to respond to the story of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection. There's a wonderful commentator on Mark, Ched Myers, who compares this ending to the never-ending story, a novel by Michael Ende, which was made into a movie in the 80s. For some of us, it's a cult movie. But it's a story of a little boy named Bastian, and he's being chased on his way to school by bullies, so he ducks into a bookstore. And he sees a book called The Never-Ending Story, and he sneaks off with it and starts reading it. He becomes deeply absorbed in the story, and it's about a land called Fantastica, which is being threatened by the nothing, a darkness which destroys everything that it touches. The kingdom needs a human child to help defeat the nothing. Bastian, as he reads, gradually becomes aware that the characters in the book are asking him for help. And in fact, he realizes he is a character in the book, and he's terrified. But he finally realizes that if he doesn't take action, the kingdom is doomed. When he decides to get involved, the book goes around and has a whole new beginning. The gospel story is also a story that calls us into action. We are characters in the story of God's redemption of the world, and we have a role to play. God has chosen to invite us to be a part of God's ongoing work of healing the creation and ushering in God's reign. Each of us has a decision to make, and our decision matters. Will we choose to trust God and the good news of the resurrection? The disciples were told that Jesus had gone ahead of them to Galilee and to go and join him there. Galilee is where the whole story started and where Jesus carried out his ministry. In other words, the end of the story leads back to the beginning. The disciples are invited to a new beginning, following Jesus' footsteps and continuing his ministry of preaching the good news and caring for those who are sick and hungry or outcast, speaking truth about injustice and freeing people from whatever binds them. And that same invitation is extended to all of us who read or hear Mark's gospel. Now that we've heard the story, will we follow in Jesus' footsteps and continue his ministry? Will we continue even when it's hard, when we're weary or face opposition? Or will we say nothing to anyone because we're afraid? God waits with bated breath for our answer, and we answer not just once for all, but again and again in our lives. Tell me, Mary Oliver says, What is it that you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? The end of the gospel directs us back to the beginning, because this is the decision that we make over and over. Our joyous Easter celebration renews our hearts and helps us to hear once more Jesus' core message. Be not afraid. I go before you always. Come, follow me. I want to close with a profound question that Bishop Hyde asked at his installation a few months ago that I've been living with. What could we accomplish if we were not afraid? The never-ending story continues. Happy Easter.